Welcome to the exciting afternoon of Track 2, Culture and Trends. I got to tell you that there's so many people that are missing out on this right now that need to come in here, because I got real excited when I was talking earlier with Lauren, because this one, I remember when I was a young man, 9 years old, playing baseball, and I wasn't very good. I'd always miss hitting the ball, but I, for some reason, kept doing it. But every time I hear the song, "Celebrate Good Times, Come On," it always reminds me of baseball and playing baseball. And so in this next session, we're going to learn about the emotive power and basically the way emotion, the way music can be used intentionally to help elevate and connect with the brand. And so I'd like to introduce to you, we have Lauren McGuire, who's the president of Made Music Studio. And then we have Reid, who founded Sentient Decision Science. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you, Maury. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be presenting with you, Lauren. Made and Sentient have been partners for over 10 years with Made Music, creating iconic sonic assets for brands, and Sentient quantifying the consumer emotional response. We've done some special work together, and today we're going to illustrate, and through case study, some of that work. We're going to show you an introduction to sonic branding and what it means and how it can elevate your brand. We'll review some of the latest automated behavioral science technology that captures emotion, attention, and memory for a brand as it relates to sound. We're going to review 3 case studies that look at sonic logos, iconic sonic logos developed by Made Music for brands that you know, and how on-brand sound within your social media feed can increase engagement and the impact or influence of your ads. We'll finish off with some best practices on sonic branding and how insights professionals can measure the importance of sound in branding. And with that, I'll hand it off to Lauren McGuire.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. So we're going to talk about the power of sound to start this off. Start thinking with that part of our brains.
Time to help people customize and change with Liberty Music. Get a free Domino's pizza in Greece.
So when I started in this job, folks would say, oh, for a lot of digital and social, it's sound off. In 2020, that changed. With the rise of TikTok and Instagram Reels, sound became more important than ever. Fun fact about sound, you can visually take in 25 points of interest. You can hear 200 in any second. So when you think about these multi-screen environments that we're all living in, you can't shut your ears off. As folks go to their phone, they're still hearing their television and vice versa. So thinking about how sound can benefit your brand is really critical when thinking about these environments. As we all move to sound-on environments, sound is becoming more critical. Up until a few years ago, that was the default credit card chip reader sound. Point 2 about sound, it is highly emotional. It cuts directly to the emotional part of your brain. So at that moment that we all know, checkout, when you have that hit of dopamine, that was like an emotional wet blanket on that experience. So thinking about sound at all of these critical touch points is part of how we think. You can see here, and Aaron will take us through more about the methodology, that registers at a 96.1 or negative in terms of emotional appeal. I don't think anybody here is surprised by that. On the flip side of that emotional appeal is the sound of birds. The number of places that I have added bird sound in that you will never know they are created, I can't even count on one hand at this point. Is it about the bird sound? Not really. Sound is primal. What do birds tell us? You're in a healthy environment. It has water. It has shelter. It has bugs. It has no major predators. There's no storms coming. All of these things that we primally understand as humans just through that sound. That's why we get that emotional response of 109.7. So all of these complicated and primal instincts that we have around sound is how you need to be thinking about your brand and sound. And usually sound is the last thing brands think of. So we're going to play a game, name this brand. Yell it out if you know it. That's right, Netflix. We talk about sonic logos and creating that sound of a brand as being iconic, memorable, and enduring. When you create this sort of IP, you want it to last for a decade. Let's do the next one. Yell it out when you know it. McDonald's, great. That's the original McDonald's with Justin Timberlake. Pluses and minuses of using a celebrity. He's having a rough year. Most years he's been in a pretty good spot from a brand reputation perspective. But that ba-da-ba-ba-ba has moved beyond JT, and now you hear lots of people, instrumentations, giving back that melody that McDonald's has been really consistent with. Last one, yell it out. Oh, sorry. Now the last one. T-Mobile, exactly. Now, multiple people knew it was in a telecom space, but which telecom? There are certain industries that have more sonic in the space. I was talking to our friend from insurance. Insurance is huge when it comes to sonic logos because you really want that top of mind placement, and sound helps you get it. So, T-Mobile. So we're a made music studio. We started in entertainment. If we are doing our jobs right, you're not thinking about what we created at all. You are thinking, I love the Super Bowl when it's on NBC. You're thinking, I love HBO television properties. You're thinking, I love this brand. I love the sound of this electric car. I love this robot that cleans my home. All of those are things that we create sound and music for, and if we're doing our job, you're not thinking about the sound and music at all, which is why we partner with our friends at Sentient Decision Sciences, because music is inherently subconscious. So how do we test that in a way that's going to be effective and meaningful for brands? Aaron?
That's wonderful. Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, the emotional reaction to sound is automatic. You don't have to think about it. And so if we're trying to measure the emotional reaction to sound, we should want our research methods to be able to capture that automaticity of a response. And so to introduce you to Sentient, we build technology that measures attention, emotion, and the non-conscious mind. And we do this in a way to be able to reveal the unspoken drivers of behavior, what we can't capture in a survey. We want to be able to complement all of that rich conscious data that we have with data on the non-conscious, on the visceral. So that technology then becomes very useful when we want to quantify the emotional reaction to sound. One of my favorite projects that Made Music Studio and Sentient has done over the years is the sonic humanism spectrum. Lauren introduced that pleasurable birdsong sound earlier, as well as the credit card chip reader. Those were done intentionally and mapped along this normative scale of emotional response. 100 is essentially neutral. Think of it as like a midpoint on a Z-score. And below 100 is negative. Above 100 is a positive implicit emotional reaction. And on this sonic humanism scale, you can see how high is high and how low is low. Well, there's your credit card reader, 5th percentile. Anybody remember the Sun Chips bag? The sound of rain on the roof. There's Netflix. Guess what's number one? Baby laughter. I've heard that hundreds of times. I still get smiles, and every once in a while a little chill down my spine. That automatic, implicit emotional reaction to sound. If we know how people respond emotionally to baby laughter, and our sonic logo is inching toward that level of pleasurable response, we know we have at least the first ingredient, an immediate, automatic, emotional, positive response. Is it going to be memorable? Is it going to be iconic, distinct, and is it going to be enduring? Those are all key elements to effective sonic branding. And it's becoming, as Lauren mentioned, increasingly important in the social, digital environment that we are now all in for hours and hours each day. Within a crowded landscape, we need to be certain that sound is being used to capture attention, to emotionally engage, raise the mental availability of the brand, after exposure, and ideally increased desire for the brand, increased willingness to engage, likelihood to purchase the brand. This drives to a very important point in measuring emotion and trying to capture what persuasion is. Persuasion, as in this industry for years and years, was a Likert type scale question at the end of a survey. How likely are you to purchase this product? Who has used that as and labeled it persuasion? Right? It's the very last part of persuasion. Persuasion is actually a process. Persuasion starts with engagement and goes through to influence or increasing desire. So if we think of persuasion not as the final endpoint, but a process that we have to engage in, we can lay it out according to a theoretical model of persuasion, engagement and influence. First, that's a little dark, but it says in-platform engagement. Are you capturing attention? Emotional engagement. Are you increasing the emotional response from the consumer? Affect. That's the first part, engagement. The second part, influence. Is your brand more memorable, more mentally available after exposure to your marketing assets? And then finally, are you lifting desire for your brand? And put this, instead of taking it out of academic talk and putting it into marketer language, which creative assets will break through in the social media environment? Which of my creative assets will captivate and hold attention? Were viewers emotionally engaged? To what degree? When did engagement rise and when did it fall? What are the elements of our creative assets that are actually evoking emotion and potentially changing attitudes? The change of attitudes is on the influence side. Which assets leave the strongest memory trace for the brand? Not for the ad, but for the brand. Did they lift implicit emotional appeal for the brand? Did they lift key brand attribute associations that you're trying to drive with your creative? And then finally, are they going to, that final step in persuasion, are they going to lift desire for your brand, increase intention to purchase your brand? So if that's the model, you might recognize that as the attention, affect, memory, and desire model of persuasion. What are the measures? Well, for social media, we want to measure actual behavior in feed. So what's the stopping power of your creative assets? Does sound increase your ability to stop consumers? Does the sound that you choose for your social media assets actually increase the amount of your ad that consumers will watch? What's the decay rate of attention to your ad? Is sound a factor that can increase emotional engagement? Is sound a factor that can increase the overall affective delivery of your creative? Does it increase memory? Does it increase implicit emotional appeal? Does it lift those brand attributes? For each of these questions, we want to use the most advanced behavioral science in an automated technology so that we can get these insights quickly, and we have scientific evidence of the effectiveness of your ads and sound's impact rather than consumer opinions of whether it will be effective or not. Automated behavioral science allows us to do that. We believe it's actually the future of the market research industry. And that's when we're at a research conference that is all about AI, right? The introduction of AI is making real human response more valuable. These AIs have to be trained on real human data. And it can't just be the conscious written spoken word that the current LLMs are trained on. It needs to be data that quantifies the human emotional experience, that measures the non-conscious, how the mind really works. The written word is simply that linear expression of how the mind works, which is not linear. It's distributed in non-conscious in system one, giving rise to your rational thought. If the future is AI, the foundation for that future has to be behavioral science. And automated behavioral science allows us to do it at scale and at the speed that AI can do it. So, enough of the measurement and the technology. Let's get back into some branding. We want to show you some case studies. And this first one is for Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Anybody eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch or have kids that eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Yeah? See, not everybody's admitting it, the unspoken. See? You know what I mean? We're going to introduce the Sonic logo. It's already been introduced in the marketplace, created by Made Music, and Lauren is going to take us through a couple of activations of this Sonic logo within the market. You want to give a little description on this?
Yeah, this will be a pretty quick hit. They're going to go in a row. You're going to hear the Sonic logo, and then you're going to see the Sonic logo and theme in broadcast advertising. And then you'll see it used as certain Sonic logos are created so that they can act as a comedic hit at the end of brands that need a little bit of comedy and lightness. So you'll see that as well.
All right, here is Cinedust. This is the case study. Cinedust, Cinnamon Toast Crunch came to Made Music to develop a Sonic logo, and as is practice at Made, created 3 really exceptional logos for testing to see which of the different Sonic logos can actually lift preference, lift key brand attributes. And for this particular brand, the target audience, Hispanic teens as well as Hispanic parents, a core target audience for the Cinnamon Toast Crunch brand. And so in this case, you're going to see the reaction, the lift in preference for Cinnamon Toast Crunch when it's paired with different Sonic logos. Version 3 of these logos produced a preference for Cinnamon Toast Crunch against its competitors of 12.8 points. So that is a combined conscious, emotional response preference measure. Version 4 among the teenage group was a 16.5. And version 5 was a 13.9. Think of it like choice-based conjoint, except sound is now one of your attributes. Does that make sense? Yeah? So that was great among Hispanic teens, but if the parents hated it, it's a no-go, right? Who's buying the cereal? Turns out that version 4 actually was a significant lift in preference for Cinnamon Toast Crunch among Hispanic parents as well. So quantitative data at scale online measuring System 1 and System 2 emotional response to the sound. In addition to preference, these Sonic logos also lifted key brand attributes for Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So automatic associations, these are the gut level reactions. How quickly and accurately are you able to associate these attributes with a brand? And the 3 versions there on the bottom, you can see some of the attributes. High energy, irresistible, funny, stressful, not an attribute, and surprising. These are 4 out of those are critical attributes for the Cinnamon Toast Crunch brand. It's a funny brand, it's wacky. It is high energy. And so the sound needed to reflect that brand essence. And you can see here for version 4, higher on the scale is a stronger association. You can see that high energy was strongly associated with version 4 logo, the Sonic logo. This is part of the evaluation on how to choose the right Sonic logo for your brand. And notice we measured stressful as well, because Hispanic parents thought that the sound was really high energy too, but if it was high energy and stressful, that's a red flag, right? Because we can be really high energy, but never want to hear the sound again. This one actually had the best of both. It was high energy without being stressful for the parent group, and the kids thought it was great as well. Okay, so that's some of the data. Ready for the sound?
Cinedust! Cinedust!
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, frosted with Cinedust.
Thursday night football premiere. So clearly we weren't sure if that was going to test as annoying with Hispanic parents, and you always want to push the limits, and it didn't, and it's been really successful in market. It also has Cinedust, which is IP of theirs, and getting that out there in a meaningful and memorable way.
Certainly iconic, distinct. Nobody's associating that with any other cereal, right? It's distinct, it's ownable, and it lifts preference for the brand, especially among the target audiences. All right, let's do another one. This is a Sonic logo created by Made Music Studio for Snapdragon. Snapdragon, you may know it as a chip maker, and they launched their Sonic identity this year in partnership with Made Music. And we went through a similar process. Global test, I believe it was 5 different countries globally, measuring the implicit emotional reaction to the potential Snapdragon logos. Here it is. Has anybody heard that in any of their social feeds and seen a lot of Snapdragon ads? How long does it take, Lauren, for a
Usually
logo
about
to-
18 months. With a media spend, Snapdragon is not a huge media spender, but just like like Intel, they are going to start putting it into other folks' advertising, like Samsung OEMs. So when you're a brand that only has 2 seconds at the end of the spot, Sonic can be really helpful.
And so by incorporating that into your social and your other touch points with the consumers, you're increasing the mental availability of your brand from the sound itself. And after it's lodged and associated uniquely with your brand, you get more activation you get more return on your advertising investment in terms of memory. As part of this test with Snapdragon, we were able to test the emotional reaction to social advertisements that included the new Sonic logo, as well as other messaging from the brand. And in this automated behavioral science platform, you can see the emotional reaction to, this is a Snapdragon social spot. You can see moment by moment how the audience is reacting emotionally to that particular ad. It's a pretty boring ad, actually, and it still is evoking emotion. The sound is a memory cue for the brand. And so it enhances the potential for even a social ad to change attitudes toward the brand, perceptions of the brand. One of the key perceptions was powerful. We wanted to know if this ad actually lifted perceptions of powerful with the Snapdragon brand. And if you saw that red line on that screen versus the white line, that red line was the emotional journey of the people who felt Snapdragon was more powerful after watching the ad. So now with this automated behavioral science, you can quantify changes in the non-conscious mind due to social advertising enhanced by Sonic. And you can pinpoint the moments of your creative that are related to that change in attitude. And that can all be done in 24 hours. That's remarkable, enhanced by AI. Last case study we will do is, went back instead of forward, is Rockstar. Rockstar is an interesting case study. Again, another client of Maid's in creating the Sonic identity. And as part of the services that Maid provides, there is a platform continuum, which enables brands to have a curated library is the wrong word. Curated library?
Library is library is the word, but all of the music and sound that you need for digital and social under one blanket license at high quality and non-repetitive loops. And repetitive loops is what is going to be the secret in this next case study as we look at it.
I love that. So imagine if you're a brand and you're trying to put out your social media, you're selecting from TikTok, oh, that's a popular song right now, I'm going to attach it to my ad. Is that good for your brand? Is it good for your ad? What if it was actually on-brand sound? Would that increase engagement with your ad? Would it make your brand more mentally available after exposure? Of course, you know the answers to those questions, right? Why I'm asking them. The evidence, though, is very compelling. So 2 different versions of this same ad. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the ad with the stock sound from TikTok. On the right-hand side, you'll see the same ad with emotional response with on-brand sound chosen from the continuum assets. So what does the stock sound do? It gets a little bit of a bump there in emotional engagement in the beginning. And that's, you expect that. It comes in heavy and you see that. But what happens after we hear a little bit of that sound? The response to the ad, the sound is part of it, goes negative. Now what I'm going to show you on the right-hand side is exactly the same ad. The only thing that's changed is the sound. The sound is now on-brand, designed sound for the brand. Oh my, very different emotional engagement. And just as the ad was about to get repetitive in the first, what happens? That beat comes back in. We get that loop, and look at the emotional reaction. It also happens at the moment that the ad is talking about the promotion, 365 days of Rockstar for free for you. So the audience is more emotionally engaged simply by the sound. But does that turn into more attention in the app? Here's the in-app behavior across the two. This is the decay rate across the two versions of that same ad. The green is the on-brand sound. The white is the stock sound. They perform similarly at the beginning, with the on-brand sound outperforming a little bit. But look at what happens about 50% through that ad. First of all, people don't watch social ads very long, right? See the decay rate. By the end, it's only an 11-second ad. We only have about 15% of people who are still watching. That's amazing. But look at what happens when you incorporate the on-brand sound. Remember that emotional response? You see the correlation? It was about halfway through. It sustains attention longer. So in total, 13% more of this content is watched simply by using on-brand sound. Does that deliver more for your brand? The answer here is yes. Again, this is depth of memory for the brand, essentially mental availability of the brand after exposure to the ad, with response time methods that give us a strength of that memory encoding. The on-brand sound delivers greater memory for the brand. It's a distinctive brand asset. It's cueing the brand in the consumer's mind. And it is lifting rational and system 1 and system 2 preference for the brand. The only thing that changed was the soundtrack. All right, we'll finish off with a few best practices and then open up for some questions. Yeah. A few best practices. Questions, what fosters engagement? We love this stat. This was a study that Made and Sentient did years ago, showing that the emotional response to sound has a 0.86 correlation with desire to engage in a brand experience or avoid a brand experience if it's a negative response. Very strong evidence of the importance of sound. Obviously, short form is our new 15. That's old news. What's new is the insight that stock music might give you a boost in engagement, but may not be delivering memory for your brand. If you can use on-brand sound, you can tell your story more effectively and lift your brand to a greater degree. Other best practices, if you can couple that with a clear call to action or a promotion at the moment of emotional arousal, that's going to be more memorable for your audience as well. A couple of best insights on best practice on influence. A best practice, automated behavioral science. We don't have to rely solely on people's opinions. If you ask somebody, is this sound going to make you more likely to buy this brand? What are they going to tell you? Are you, no? What? Why are you even asking me the question? But clearly, if you experimentally manipulate your studies and use advanced measures, you can reveal the true impact through automated behavioral science. And this initial evidence shows leveraging branded music may enhance recall for the brand. And this little tip, if you can do that and couple it in an authentic way with a testimonial, whether an influencer or not, a testimonial about your brand is going to lift preference as well. I'll put this up there. If you would like more information, obviously scan the QR code. Lauren, would you like to close with any closing thoughts for us?
I'll just close by saying to a room of research professionals, please never ask audiences if they like or dislike the music. It doesn't matter. It's not what your brands need. It doesn't matter if they like the music. It's how it speaks to your brand.
So we've got time for maybe one question. We have a music question. Here we go. Let me bring this to you.
Thanks. My question, I think it was one of the negative attributes, but I'm wondering if there's any brands you can think of that successfully leverage an irritating sound to drive breakthrough, even if it's known to be irritating or disliked.
So in my advertising days, I was at a company that no longer exists called Kaplan Thaler Group, a sound publicist company, and they created the Aflac duck. And the Aflac duck was the most, it went into qualitative testing. People were like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. I hate it. Aflac went from an unknown brand to a known brand practically overnight because of that Aflac duck. So that's the one that pops into my head, absolutely. I think right now Liberty uses that very Liberty. I think there's multiple YouTube versions about like being stuck in a hellscape of liberties. I don't care, it's working. It is working for that brand. So I think there's a couple of them that use that just to, if your number one concern is top of mind and mental availability, make it irritating.
No offense, mine was going to say BK, the song for Burger King. Or a number of things that any of us parents know our kids have those things that they leverage in terms of noises, right? So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody.